Hello, and welcome to News Nectar, the podcast that breaks down the most important stories of the day into clear, actionable insights. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're exploring a really fascinating and frankly concerning trend that's reshaping the American workforce in ways we haven't seen in decades. Picture this. You're sitting in your office cubicle, maybe staring at a computer screen, thinking about how much you'd love a new job. Maybe the work feels stagnant. Maybe your boss drives you crazy, or maybe you're just ready for a change. But instead of updating that LinkedIn profile or browsing job boards, you stay put. You're not alone. In fact, you're part of what economists are calling an unprecedented phenomenon. Americans are holding on to their jobs like never before. Today's episode is all about the great American job lock-in. We're talking about why millions of workers are staying in positions they might not love, what's behind this trend, and what it means for the future of our economy. Trust me, this story affects every single one of us, whether you're employed, looking for work, or running a business. Before we jump in, if you're finding value in these conversations, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe drop a comment letting me know what you think. It helps more people discover these important discussions. And honestly, your feedback helps me make better episodes for you. So let's start with the numbers, because they tell a pretty striking story. Americans are quitting their jobs at the lowest rate we've seen in years. We're talking about quit rates that have dropped to levels not seen since before the pandemic shook up everything we thought we knew about work. But here's what makes this really interesting. It's not because people are suddenly in love with their jobs. Far from it. The data shows that job satisfaction hasn't dramatically improved, and workplace conditions haven't magically transformed overnight. So, what's really going on here? Well, it's fear, plain and simple. Workers are scared, and that fear is keeping them stuck in jobs they might otherwise leave. Let me paint you the full picture. While workers are staying put, companies are hiring at their slowest pace in over a decade. Think about that for a moment. We have this situation where people don't want to leave their current jobs, and companies aren't creating as many new opportunities anyway. It's like an economic standoff, and it's creating ripple effects throughout our entire labor market. Now, I've been covering economic trends for years, and I have to tell you, this feels different. During previous economic uncertainties, we'd typically see some sectors slowing down while others picked up the slack. But what we're seeing now is more widespread. It's hitting white-collar jobs, blue-collar positions, the service industry, tech, healthcare. This isn't just one sector being cautious. This is systematic hesitation across the board. So, what's behind this fear? Let's break it down, because understanding the root causes helps us understand where we might be headed. First, there's inflation anxiety. Even though inflation has cooled from its peaks, prices for everything from groceries to housing remain elevated compared to just a few years ago. Workers are thinking, sure, I might hate my current job, but at least I know what my paycheck looks like. At least I can budget around this income. There's a psychological comfort in that predictability, even when the job itself isn't fulfilling. Second, we have layoff fears that are very, very real. We've seen major corporations across industries announce significant job cuts throughout this year. From tech giants to traditional manufacturing companies, the headlines have been consistently sobering. When you're scrolling through news about mass layoffs, the idea of voluntarily leaving your job starts to feel pretty risky, doesn't it? Third, there's this broader sense that the economy is cooling down. Consumer spending patterns are changing, business investments are becoming more conservative, and there's this general feeling that we might be headed for tougher times. In that environment, job security becomes more valuable than job satisfaction. But here's where this gets really problematic, and why this isn't just a temporary blip we can ignore. When people stay in jobs they don't want, it creates what economists call labor market rigidity. Innovation slows down because companies aren't getting fresh talent with new ideas. Workers aren't developing new skills because they're not moving to roles that challenge them differently. And overall, productivity can stagnate because people aren't in positions where they can perform at their best. Think about it from a human perspective, too. We spend roughly a third of our adult lives at work. When people feel trapped in unfulfilling positions, it affects their mental health, their family relationships, their sense of purpose. We're potentially looking at a generation of workers who feel stuck, and that has implications that go far beyond economic statistics. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not suggesting that everyone should quit their jobs tomorrow. Financial security is important, and being strategic about career moves is smart. But what we're seeing goes beyond prudent career planning. We're seeing paralysis driven by fear, and that's concerning. Let's talk about what this means for different groups of people. If you're a recent graduate entering the job market, this trend makes your path significantly more challenging. Fewer people are leaving positions, which means fewer openings for new entrants. You're competing not just with other new graduates, but you're also fighting against a market where experienced workers aren't creating the turnover that typically opens up opportunities. If you're mid-career, you might be feeling this trap most intensely. You have responsibilities, maybe a mortgage, kids' college funds, aging parents to care for. The risk of leaving a steady job feels enormous, even if that job is slowly crushing your soul. This demographic is really bearing the brunt of this trend. For business owners and managers, this creates a different kind of challenge. On one hand, you have more stability in your workforce. People aren't leaving as often, so you're not constantly dealing with turnover costs and training new employees. But on the other hand, you might notice that innovation is slowing, that people seem less engaged, that the energy level in your organization isn't what it used to be. Here's what I find most concerning about all of this. We might be creating a self-reinforcing cycle. The more people stay in jobs out of fear, the more the job market stagnates. The more the job market stagnates, the fewer opportunities exist for people who do want to move. The fewer opportunities that exist, the more justified people feel in their decision to stay put. It's a loop that could potentially persist much longer than the economic conditions that created it. But let's not end on a completely pessimistic note, because there are ways to think about this situation more strategically, both as individuals and as a society. For individuals, this might actually be a good time to focus on skill development within your current role. If you're going to stay where you are anyway, why not use this time to become exceptionally good at what you do? Take on projects that stretch your abilities, pursue professional development opportunities, build relationships that could serve you well when the job market eventually loosens up. For employers, this is an opportunity to really invest in your existing workforce. If people are staying longer, it makes sense to invest more in their development, their satisfaction, their growth within your organization. The companies that figure out how to keep their workforce engaged and growing are going to have significant advantages when economic conditions improve. From a policy perspective, this situation highlights the importance of social safety nets that give workers more flexibility to take career risks. When people have better healthcare security, more robust unemployment benefits, and clearer pathways for retraining, they're more likely to make career moves that could benefit both themselves and the broader economy. Looking ahead, I think we need to watch several key indicators to understand how this trend might evolve. Consumer confidence surveys will tell us whether the underlying fears are getting better or worse. Job opening rates will show us whether companies are becoming more willing to hire. And wage growth patterns will indicate whether employers are having to compete more aggressively for the workers who are available. My prediction? This situation probably persists for at least another year, maybe longer. The psychological impact of the economic uncertainty we've experienced doesn't just disappear when statistics improve. People need time to rebuild confidence, and that typically happens gradually, not all at once. But when it does shift, and it will shift eventually, we might see some dramatic changes. Pent-up demand for career moves could create a very dynamic job market. Workers who have been developing skills while staying put might be ready to make bold moves. Companies that have been conservative about hiring might suddenly find themselves competing aggressively for talent. The key for all of us is to stay prepared for that shift while managing the reality of where we are right now. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? First, If you're feeling stuck in your current job, know that you're not alone and that this feeling is largely driven by broader economic forces, not personal failings. Second, use this time wisely. Whether that means building skills, saving money, or just maintaining your mental health through a challenging period. And third, stay informed about economic trends, because understanding the bigger picture helps you make better individual decisions. The American labor market has always been dynamic, and this period of stagnation won't last forever. But how we navigate it, both individually and collectively, will shape what comes next. That's all for today's episode of News Nectar. I'm Alex, and thank you for spending your time with me exploring this important story. And hey, if you found value in today's discussion, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share this episode with someone who might benefit from understanding these labor market trends. Your support really does help us reach more people with these important conversations. We'll be back next time with another story that matters to your life and your future. Until then, stay informed, stay strategic, and remember, even in uncertain times, knowledge is power.